How's it going? My name is Tristan and I am joining Booktube. So first order of business, of course, needs to be the Booktube newbie tag. And that's what we're gonna do today. Give you a chance to get to know me, what you can expect from the channel, so let's jump in. So why did I start this channel? Well, it's a big question. I've been consuming Booktube content for a few years now, and it's kind of the only thing I use YouTube for anymore. I love book recommendations, book reviews, and I read a lot and love books. So if I can get engaged in this community as well, I think it's about time that I do. I've seen a lot of creators making videos on how to get started on Booktube, what you need to know before starting YouTube, all of these sorts of things. And I'll link them down in the description as well, so that if you want to take a look at them, you can. The biggest piece of advice they gave was just do it. A lot of people in my immediate circle don't really engage with books the same way I do, and so in order to fill that need, I usually come to Booktube. So I thought that I would add my own voice to it. Now, as far as fun and unique things, what are they that I can bring to YouTube? One of my big interests is French literature. I speak French and I am actually getting a master's in French. I'm about to get my degree. It's something that I'm very passionate about and something that I have a big interest in. I would love to have this channel be a good resource for people who want to learn French and people who want to gain confidence in reading in French. And so, along with my regular book reviews and book content, I'll probably have a little bit of side content that will deal with French. Because reading in French is honestly kind of difficult, especially if you're still learning the language. There's a whole verb tense that you have to learn and get used to seeing if you want to read, and it's a verb tense that isn't used in spoken French, it's just a literary tense. So if I can help people boost their confidence for reading in French, I would love to do that. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about with getting started on this channel, is just engaging with people about books, and that's why I'm here. Next up is, why do I love reading? As I said, I'm studying French, both the language and the literature. I have always really liked language, playing with language, seeing the artistry of language ever since I was young. And for me now, literature is also the most accessible form of art that I can consume on a regular basis. Literature and painting are my two favorite art forms. I don't always have the time or the money to go to an art gallery, but I do always have time to read. I love seeing how people craft sentences and play with imagery and put so much care and detail into a text that I'm just obsessed with it. And it's the form of art that I'm the most interested in, and the form of art that if I were to create anything, it's going to be writing. So I'm going to skip to when did you start reading, because that provides some important context for the rest of what I'm going to talk about in this video. So when did I start reading with the same level of voracity that I am right now? 2021. Pre-2021, I would maybe read like 1-2 books a year, which isn't a bad thing. As long as you're reading, you're winning, right? But I had been really burnt out on reading ever since kind of junior high, honestly, middle school. The accelerated reader program that we had to do, AR books, really destroyed reading as an interest and a hobby for me. And so it took me a long time to get back into it. And it really wasn't until the end of 2020 and moving into 2021 that I really got into it. And when I say I really got into it, I went from reading no books to reading 126 books in a single year. And I had literally doubled the number of books that I had read in my entire life in a single year. I read more books in 2021 than I had ever read in my entire life. And I think that is unhinged. A, unhinged. B, I think we can just stop at unhinged. That also begs the question, what book series did I read that got me back into it? And the answer is Discworld. Terry Pratchett's Discworld is my favorite. Terry Pratchett is my favorite author, hands down. There's nobody that can compete with him in my mind. His exploration of the human condition is so fascinating to me, and his social commentary and everything that he does with wordplay and puns and comedy, and the fact that he can have things that are very serious still be funny at the same time, and vice versa, things that are very funny be very serious. Because I think that so often we get into the habit of thinking that when something is something that we need to take seriously, it can't be funny. And Pratchett would say that's not true. And I agree. I think that his work has shaped a lot of my thinking in the world, and yeah, I love his books. And this in particular, this book, Guards, is the one that I started with, and this is the one that I would say got me into reading. And on the same token, I also picked up this one, which is a French classic by François Mauriac. This is Thérèse d'Esquiraux. It's just her name. There's no English translation, I'm sorry. And this is a book from 1927. It was the one that really got me into French literature in particular. I really love the influence that French literature has had on the rest of Western literature, and just the conception of the French novel is something that's very interesting to me. Obviously, you know, I'm getting my master's in it, so I think I have plenty of thoughts about it. This is actually also the book I'm doing my thesis on, looking at a few of the aspects on how she is othered by her family, as well as gender and sexuality, and then just kind of the general theme of silence. It's a fascinating book. I will definitely dedicate a full video on talking about this at some point. And then also, I picked up L'Assommoir, which is sometimes translated as the drinking den. It's also called the Assommoir, and the Assommoir is just the name of a bar. This is written in the second half of the 19th century, and Zola is an author who really examines a lot of social ills, sort of the things that are causing society to be sick. In this book, the thing that is making society sick, in his mind, and the thing that he's examining in this, is alcohol. This is sort of the slow, painful train wreck of a woman named Gervaise, as she starts off as a lowly washerwoman to a successful businesswoman to her eventual decline into alcoholism and then death. And I mean, if you know anything about Zola's work, they're almost always tragedies. People die at the end, so telling you that the main character dies at the end is not a spoiler. It's just a fact of his work. His sort of like English language counterpart would be Charles Dickens, but they do have a lot of differences between them stylistically and the content that they talk about. But all of that said, I was really captivated by this one when I read it back in 2021. It's just really a great book. Those three books are the ones that really kind of got me into reading and got me to where I am today. So what questions would I ask my favorite booktubers? Honestly, it's just tips on editing. That's really it. I've never done it before. If you see this video, this is going to be the first time I've ever edited a video in my life. So wish me luck. And if you have any tips, please help. So what challenges will be the hardest with Booktube? Everyone says consistency, and I think that's going to be the same for me. We always get this really big rush of endorphins when we try something new and something that's exciting. And then as soon as those endorphins wear off, we kind of set aside whatever hobby or whatever thing that we're wanting to pursue, and then just it kind of disappears. And I'm hoping that that's not the case with this, because I've really had my eye on starting a booktube channel for a long time, and I really hope I can keep up with it. And then obviously, like, I've never filmed myself in any capacity, so getting used to talking to a camera, seeing myself on camera, and then putting myself out into more of the public sphere is going to be pretty difficult. It's just a hurdle of discomfort that I'm going to have to surmount. Where do I read? Where don't I read? I read on the couch, in bed, dinner table, on the bus. I listen to books at the gym. I read while I'm on the toilet. I read while I'm on walks in the park. I very much follow the advice that you should never be without a book, and so I am not ever without a book. I use a lot of audiobooks through Libby, which is a great way to get free audiobooks and also to get introduced to books that you might not have bought otherwise. And so I listen to a lot of audiobooks whenever I'm not reading physical books. And last but not least, what kind of books do I like to read? It's going to be easier to tell you what kind of books I don't read, because my tastes are quite broad, and I'm genuinely pretty easy to please, and I'm generally easy to please so long as the books are within what I'm interested in. It's not very helpful. So obviously fantasy is kind of where I got started in books. My dad read me the entire Harry Potter series when I was growing up. My mom read me the Chronicles of Narnia, so fantasy is kind of in my blood, and fantasy is definitely an area that I gravitate toward. You probably will see like the Wheel of Time and some other things back here, some like Brandon Sanderson and stuff. That's actually a lot of my boyfriend's stuff. Same with Pendragon up there. This is the public facing bookshelf here. that is a combination of both of our interests. So we have my boyfriend's interests, mine, his, and then mine again. It's an alternating thing. This here is my gay literature shelf. It's like fiction, nonfiction that I really like. I, in general, really like literary fiction, historical fiction, the French classics, and then also French books that are within the fantasy, literary fiction, historical fiction label. I don't tend to gravitate toward thrillers or romance. It's not that I won't read them or won't like them. It's just they tend not to scratch the itch that I'm going for whenever I pick up a book. I find a lot of the writing in those books to be pretty conventional and not necessarily super artistic. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just not what I'm looking for whenever I pick up a book. It's more what I'm looking for when I'm watching a show on Hulu or Netflix. That being said, those sorts of books make great audiobooks to listen to at the gym, on a walk, whatever. If I do ever read a romance or a thriller, it's going to be in the form of an audiobook, hands down. Lastly, I do not read horror. Horror is the genre that I am most adamantly opposed to reading because when I was young, I had a lot of issues with sleep paralysis and had some pretty horrifying hallucinations that I'm not interested in reading in books. Also, my apartment when I lived in Seattle was haunted, so it's just, I'm not interested in experiencing things in books that are, for me, a little bit too close to real life. It's just not gonna happen. I'm also not a big YA reader. That can kind of depend on what my mood is. I've got a book up here. So this is called Mordu, and it's got a very distinct, like, His Dark Materials vibe to it. This is the type of YA that I would absolutely gravitate toward, even though I don't think it's necessarily billed as a YA book, but it feels like YA to me, and I love this book. So it kind of depends. Like I said, I'm generally fairly easy to please. It just kind of is whatever tickles my fancy at any given time. So that's it. Those are all of the questions for the Booktube newbie tag. I am very excited to be here. I'm very excited to start to engage with y'all I'm very excited to engage with y'all as you see the videos, like and comment on them, etc. I'm just really excited to be here and finally getting started on this project that I honestly wanted to do for so long, and I don't know why I haven't. So yeah, that's it for today. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.